Hey, it's all with another video, and I'm giving my ongoing feedback of the Battle for Azeroth expansion, and this time my focus is going to be on Azerite, or I should say artifact power, with the heart of Azeroth. Yeah, in an earlier video I talked about the Azerite system with regards to the traits, but I feel that, or at least I felt that, I should talk about artifact power in a separate kind of segment. A lot of it is because I feel that this is a separate critique from some of the weaknesses of Azerite traits and the perception of the Azerite system itself. This time I'm going to talk about artifact power, how it unlocks levels in your Heart of Azeroth neck thingamajigger, and how that interacts with the Azerite pieces that you get in your gear. The continuing critique that you have seen maybe on forums, in-game, over on Reddit, is that it just doesn't feel good to acquire a new piece of gear, but at the same time, your Heart of Azeroth neck level is too low and you just can't use it. So it makes you wonder to yourself, well, dang, if I have, this item level 340 piece, and I want to replace it with a 355, well, I'm not going to do it because the 355 piece doesn't have all the traits that are unlocked while the 340 does, and, well, bad feelings are had. A few immediate solutions come to mind. One is to lower the neck level requirement of some of this gear, and the reason why I'm saying that is because we have precedent. There we go. Blizzard did in fact lower the neck level requirement of some gear because earlier when you got to max level, there was some gear that you could get immediately, but you couldn't get it because according to whatever Blizzard thought of with what your average Azerite neck level would be, well, I'm starting to confuse myself already. Basically, Blizzard fixed stuff to make it so that when you got to max level, there was at least a minimum level of gear that you can put on without feeling bad. Unfortunately, that bad feeling persists as we get into raids and Mythic Plus and so on, and for the moment, it's only going to get worse. However, it's going to get better over time. And that perception might be lost among some of these critics. As of this recording, we're going to have the raid resets happen tomorrow, which means artifact knowledge level is going to go up. The amount of experience required to level up your Heart of Azeroth is going to go down. The question that I want to ask you folks at home and on the toilet is, and you probably don't know the answer off the top of your head, but how much AP are you gaining each week? This is actually a very important question to ask yourself because if you know that answer, then you can pretty much predict when your Heart of Azeroth neck level is going to be at a certain level at any given time, thanks to the current version of Artifact Knowledge and how that works, as well as a handy-dandy chart that Wildhead created that I'm going to provide on screen somewhere, and a link below too for your reference. Before I get to that though, I want to talk about that whole feeling of acquiring gear but not feeling good about it because you can't put it on yet. It's a legit feeling, and whatever you're feeling about that, I'm not here to take it away from you. But I will at least pose the question. This feels familiar, doesn't it? Chances are, your answer is no. And we can get into all sorts of different debates and we can cite all sorts of different quotes, such as Blizzard saying, you know what? You should be able to just acquire a piece of gear and put it on right away. And of course, we've seen instances where that is clearly not the case, such as relics in the Argus patch, as well as, I guess, right now with Azerite gear. I have an opinion, and it's not a popular one, but I see the acquisition of Azerite gear and the feeling of having to keep leveling up your neck in order to activate the traits that are in that, I see that as just one more form of pacing. Some of you may call it gating because somehow that elicits negative emotions and it at least gets your attention a little bit better. But we only need to go back as far as the entire game to see many instances where Blizzard is controlling the ability for us to acquire gear and use it. Gear, loot, whatever it is, for the most part we just need to be able to get it and put it on. In order to get that piece of gear that you really, really want, you probably have had to meet one of several requirements. And for the purpose of making you cringe a little bit, I'm going to use the word gating quite liberally here. There are very familiar and I would say benign systems of gating when it comes to gear, such as level. Your level needs to be at $120 in order to wear this piece of gear. Okay, cool. Pretty straightforward, right? Maybe this gear is gated by location. After all, stuff just doesn't grow from trees or it doesn't come out from the ground. Maybe you have to complete a warfront in order to get this piece of gear. Maybe it only dropped from a dungeon. And maybe that dungeon was gated by a key or an attunement. In the Burning Crusade came heroic dungeons. Well, shucks, now I want that heroic piece of gear, but in order to get that, I need to unlock the dungeon. And in order to get into that dungeon, I need a key. Damn, it's gated by a key? Maybe that piece of gear is just something you buy from a vendor, but maybe it's gated by rep. Maybe you don't buy that piece of gear with gold. Maybe you have to use a special kind of currency like a justice, or valor, or honor, or conquest. And maybe it's still gated by rep. I'm going to stop there for just a moment and remind you folks that when it comes to stuff that is gated by rep, by an attunement, by even like gold or honor, justice, valor, whatever the heck currency, that all of these are components that Blizzard has designed in order to pace the ability for us to get gear at a certain time. Of course, at the moment, Warfronts are kind of, just giving out gear like it's freaking Christmas, but that's beside the point. But the point is that Blizzard is in full control, that they planned this all, for the most part, ahead of time. Players such as myself felt like we had a lot of agency when we were able to just spend justice or valor in order to buy the kind of gear that we want. Obtaining this justice, this valor, this conquest, this honor though, all of that is paced by Blizzard in a certain way. If you recall, there were weekly limits as to how much of these bits of currency we're able to get over the course of a week. But getting back to other examples of gating, maybe we can make the gear, but we need certain materials, and some of these materials are made with a daily cooldown. And we need like 20 or 30 days worth of this material. Maybe it's something that involves you having to run a raid multiple times each and every week before you can get this item. Maybe it's not exactly gated at all except for some sort of bad luck protection system and you gotta genocide the planet in the hopes that it'll drop until it becomes available from a vendor. But you need a certain currency in order to get it. And maybe all those previous systems adds up to what this convoluted system is now. So maybe we get these items early. But the potential of those items isn't unlocked without a little bit of time and a little bit of hard work. So I'm going to use myself as an example. Right now, my Heart of Azeroth neck level is at 21. I am well on my way to getting to 22, but I'm just a little over 21 right now. I've got a piece of gear here on display. It is actually the helmet that you get after you get your Champions of Azeroth reputation to Exalted. In order to unlock that third trait, my neck level needs to be at 22. Sad song. So right now, as of this recording, it is September 10th, 2018, and there's going to be an artifact knowledge bump coming up tomorrow with the reset. This is kind of a guesstimation, but I think I might have acquired a little around 30,000 artifact power over the course of this week. Maybe that's a lot, maybe that's not, who cares, okay? But if you look at this chart and you check the week of date, which is September 4th, that gives us an idea of what all of the experience level requirements are with the artifact knowledge that we have currently active. Don't worry, I'm also confusing myself during this recording, just bear with me, okay? If you go all the way down to Azerite level 21, you'll see approximately that 30k number. That kind of sort of basically tells me that this is my rate of artifact knowledge gain, and this is what my predicted level is going to be like forever, as long as I'm keeping up with my regular playstyle. What this basically sums up to is that if you take a look at your character and you look at what your Heart of Azeroth neck level is and refer to this chart, you'll be able to get a guesstimate as to just how much artifact power you're gaining on that character for that week. So, Soul, what the f does this all mean, right? This is all a convoluted and, I admit, a pretty confusing way of, again, Blizzard just pacing the way that you acquire gear. It's really different in this case because you already have the gear. However, you're just not unlocking its potential until Blizzard kind of lets you, based on whatever your average play habits are. If you regularly farm 40, 50,000 artifact power, you're nuts, but you can kind of predict where you're going to be at any given week. The kind of cool thing is that thanks to the current artifact knowledge levels as they are right now, it's just a little bit easier to understand, and unlike during Legion, where at one point you were gaining 50 billion artifact power a week, and then it was 220 billion the next, and it was pretty hard to understand. In this case, it's quite a bit easier as long as you just take a look at what your current neck level is. Notice that In many ways, not in all ways, but in many ways, gear is raining from the sky. It's everywhere. It is relatively easy to obtain. I'm not here to say that your feelings about how this system works is wrong. I ain't here to make you feel better. I'm just here to maybe help you understand that there is a weird process to what Blizzard is trying to do here, but in the end, it's the same as it's always been. Whether it's not letting us have this gear until a certain time, or if they're letting us have it but not awakening it, this is what we have. In the end, I think it's more trouble than it's worth. Maybe my understanding of this system is not correct, and maybe Blizzard had something else in mind, and maybe their talking points are simply what they want us to understand, but this is how I see this whole Azerite system with regards to, artifact knowledge and artifact power gain. It's needlessly complicated, even though it's meant to be very simple. You just play through the game, participate in some activities, and eventually you unlock stuff based on what your habits are. It's just that Blizzard is defining what you have access to based on what those habits are. In the end though, just like everything else that's involved with the artifact power system, it's all passive. Eventually you're going to unlock these traits. So I don't necessarily have a solution for this pretty complicated system other than what Blizzard had already done, to possibly lower the requirements of some of this Azerite gear based on whatever data that they get over the next couple of months of this tier. So that is my feedback on artifact knowledge and artifact power gains in Battle for Azeroth, but I'd love to hear your thoughts too. As always, I encourage you to speak for yourself, share your thoughts and feelings on the system. Is it doo-doo? Is it pretty passive? Did it deliver on what Blizzard was trying to sell you on? Share your thoughts and feedback in a comment below. Like the video if you enjoyed yourself, and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.